You ever hear someone revive their engine right before shutting it off? Yeah, that one little flex? It's silently damaging their engine from the inside out. Been wrenching for over a decade, some of the worst damage I've seen. Not from blown turbos, but bad daily habits like that. From coolant that turns into sludge soup, to cheap mods that ruin your fuel economy. Heck, even running tires at just 75% of their recommended pressure can cost you 2 to 3% in MPG. These are the habits most drivers never think about until it's too late. Stick around, because fixing these might be the difference between an engine that dies at ATA and one that crosses 720,000 miles like mine did. And if you're into saving thousands on repairs while driving your car into legend status, hit that subscribe button and let's keep your ride alive. Habit number 13. Stop shutting the engine off too fast. Guy rolls into the shop last month. Nice Civic, clean build, but complaining of startup rattle. I ask, you rev it before shut off? He goes, yeah, clears the engine, right? Wrong. That blip before key off dumps unburned fuel straight into the combustion chamber, floods the cylinder, and strips the oil film clean off the walls. That residue turns into dry friction the next startup. No lubrication, no mercy. I've seen plugs, injectors, and even rings take a hit, all because someone thought one last rev was healthy. You'd be shocked how much damage a simple habit can do. That last second throttle hit jacks up pressure, pushes fuel past pistons, and leaves metal on metal wear. You're basically erasing your coating with every flashy shutdown. I tell customers after a drive, especially when it's cold, let the engine idle for 5-10 seconds. Let it cool, settle, then shut off. Gives your crank internal clearance and startup spray a chance to stabilize. Ever notice how a rough startup feels like the next big problem waiting to ignite? You might just be lighting that fire yourself. And that's just one bad habit that kills engines in silence. But you know what's worse? Trusting a fluid that calls itself Lifetime. Habit number 12. Never trust Lifetime fluids. Lifetime my foot. Last winter a guy brings in his old Camry overheating. Whining pump, nasty sludge floating in the coolant tank like soup. He says manual says it's Lifetime. I pop the cap, take one whiff, and boom, burnt coolant smell and heavy oxidation. What happened? Years of neglect, heat cycles, and busted additives turned that so-called fluid into contamination. It lost viscosity, couldn't resist pressure, and now it's eating the seals and internals from the inside out. That stuff doesn't just break down, it boils, it foams, and eventually it destroys. You ever seen a power steering rack cry, or a hydraulic trans system start to leak from old gunk buildup? It ain't pretty. I tell folks, treat your fluids like milk, not wine. Replace them on a tight interval. That Lifetime warning is just code for we hope the car dies before it fails. Do a full flush every 50-60K depending on the system. Want to avoid a crack, and overheat, or a $3,000 failure? Schedule the service. Stop trusting stickers and let that flow stay clean and cool. Speaking of trust, you ever trust your tires to take care of themselves? Yeah, that's not how it works either. Habit number 11. Ignore tire pressure. Say goodbye to MPG. Had a guy complain his SUV felt sluggish and was burning fuel like a V8, even though it was a 4-banger. I checked the tire pressure, every wheel was 8 psi. That tiny number crushed his mileage, added rolling resistance, and quietly overloaded the drivetrain. I've seen a bad valve, a lazy monitor, or even just skipping the gauge turn into a blowout or uneven wear. The stress gets real, especially when your tires run soft on a hot day. Temperature spikes, rubber degrades, and suddenly your daily driver feels like it's dragging a boat. You know what kills efficiency faster than a lid foot? Underinflated tires. It messes with alignment, hurts handling, and throws off traction. Worse, it silently shortens your tread life and overloads your suspension. I tell people, grab a $10 pressure check, do it cold, and inflate to spec at least once a month. Don't wait for the TPMS sensor to cry about it. Want good economy and smooth maintenance? Keep that air balanced. Or just keep paying more for fuel, tires, and repairs you never needed. Habit number 10. Cracked vacuum lines is hidden engine stress. Last week I had a Corolla come in idling like it was having a seizure. Rough, stumble, surge, and a misfire code. Owner thought it was plugs or injectors. Nope, just a dry rotted vacuum hose with a hairline crack near the intake manifold. That tiny leak was throwing off airflow, killing fuel trim and tricking the sensor readings. The O2 and MAPE sensors were losing their minds. I've seen bad rubber cause full-on combustion chaos and even melt the throttle response. One forgotten connection, and your drivability is toast. You'd be amazed how many mystery engine problems boil down to a $3 line and a loose clamp. A proper diagnostics check should always include vacuum leak testing, especially if the car idles weird or hesitates under throttle. Feel the hoses if they're brittle, dry, or soft as taffy. Replace them. Watch your pressure, listen for hissing, and don't ignore a CAL that keeps popping up. Want your performance and efficiency back? Plug the hole. Because a cracked vacuum line doesn't yell, it whispers your engine into failure. Habit number 9. Idle learning after battery change. Guy swapped his battery, then came back saying the car felt possessed, stalling, rough startup, weird RPM jumps, and random hesitation at light. I asked, did you let it relearn? Blank stare. When you disconnect the power, your ECU loses all its adaptation memory. It forgets fuel trims, throttle behavior, even transmission shift points. The MA, TPS and MAPE sensors need time to resync and rebuild proper feedback. Otherwise you'll feel it, sluggish performance, funky timing, and maybe even a misfire or two. After a battery reset, I always run a proper drive cycle cold crank, idle for a few minutes, then gently drive with steady throttle for 10 to 15 minutes. It helps the ECU reprogram itself and smooth out ignition, airflow, and injector behavior. You skip that and you're asking for poor drivability, bad shifts, or even limp mode. Think of it like waking someone from a nap. They need a second to remember where they are. Don't just replace the voltage and go. Teach your car to learn again. While we're on the topic of shutdown habits, this next one's a silent killer, especially if you're driving turbocharged. Habit number 8. Letting the radiator fan run while parked. Had a turbocharged Veloster roll in with fried bearings and a warped exhaust manifold. What happened? Driver shut it off right after a highway pull, no idle, no cooldown. The engine was baking in its own heat soak, and the coolant just sat there, unable to circulate. The radiator fan kicked on, but it was too late. The residual heat had already started cooking his seals, lubrication, and timing component. You ever open your hood after driving and feel the oven blast? That's thermal buildup waiting to wreck stuff. When you park hot, especially after a spirited drive or hauling, just let the car idle for 30-60 seconds. That keeps airflow moving, lets oil and coolant flow, and cools down the turbo component surfaces and pressure zones. I've seen premature failure, cracked housings, and even cooling system leaks, just from bad shutdown habits. One extra minute of ventilation prevents thousands in damage. You wouldn't sprint and then instantly sit still, right? Neither should your car, but even if you drive something naturally aspirated, here's a bad habit that's confusing your ECU every single day. Still with me? If you're learning something new, give this video a quick like. It helps more than you think. Habit number 7. Drive mode abuse. Eco sport toggle junkies. Had a guy come in with a jerky transmission and nasty hesitation under throttle. Thought it was a bad sensor. Turned out he was flipping between eco and sport modes 3 times a day. That back and forth messes with the car's drive mode logic, confusing the ECU, torque delivery, and throttle mapping. It's like giving your engine a personality crisis. One day it's fuel-sipping grandma mode. Next it's track beast. The adaptation gets scrambled, and your performance, shifting, and acceleration all suffer. I tell folks, pick a setting and stick with it unless conditions change. Daily commute? Leave it in eco. Hauling or hill? Fine. Switch to sport, but don't treat that toggle like a toy. The car's fuel trims, RPM ranges, and powertrain calibration need time to learn and adjust. Not deal with your trigger finger. Want real smoothness and better responsive. Quit bouncing between modes like you're changing playlists. Habit number 6. Wrong spark plug torque. Had a guy bring in his Subaru with a misfire in cylinder 3. Swapped coils, checked fuel, nothing fixed it. Pulled the spark plug and boom, it was barely finger tight. That loose plug killed compression, blew out the arc, and nearly melted the coil from heat. On the flip side, I've also seen someone over-torque a plug and strip the thread right out of the head. That's not just a quick fix, that's pulling the motor for a heli coil, all because they skipped the torque wrench. Your plugs need to be tight, but not Hulk tight. Use a crush washer when required, seat them properly, and always check gap and torque to spec. If you go loose, you risk detonation and pre-ignition. Too tight, say goodbye to your head or electrode. I always tell people, treat spark plugs like brain surgery. It's about precision. Want proper firing, clean combustion, and strong performance? Use the right tool. Eyeballing it isn't a flex, it's a knock waiting to happen. But the damage doesn't stop there. Sometimes your engine's shaking and groaning isn't internal, it's from the mounts holding it all together. Habit number 5. Neglecting engine mounts. Had a guy come in with weird vibration at idle and random knock sounds under light torque. Thought it was an exhaust leak, or maybe loose bushing. I popped the hood and had him rev it slightly. The whole engine tilted like it was trying to escape. Shot mount. The rubber was cracked, one bolt loose, and the metal support bracket had already started to fatigue. That one part was throwing off his drivetrain, causing alignment issues and stressing the frame with every shift. Most drivers forget those mounts even exist until the shake, noise, or weird pull starts creeping in. A worn mount can't isolate engine movement, so everything from transmission slop to exhaust strain gets worse. Want to save your stability and avoid long-term failure? Check for sag, cracks, and play at service intervals. Replace at the first sign of wear. One $60 part can make the difference between smooth shifting or a car that feels like it's falling apart at stoplights. And if you thought mixing coolant types was no big deal, just wait until your radiator turns into a sludge factory. Habit number 4. Mixing coolant types. Guy shows up with overheating issues and no visible leaks. I pull the radiator cap and find a chunky rust-colored sludge thicker than pancake batter. He'd topped off his pink coat with some green IAT and never thought twice. What he really did was start a chemical reaction inside his cooling system. When coolant types aren't compatible, they gel, clog heater cores, rot gaskets, and turn the block into a cauldron of silent corrosion and residue. I've seen clogs, warped heads, and even a blown seal just from this mess. Want to avoid breakdown, overheating, and a full system flush? Check your manual or cap, stick to one formula, and if you ever switch, do a complete drain. Mixing OT, HOT, and IAT is like throwing bleach and ammonia in a bucket. It'll damage your internals, kill flow, and turn your coolant acidic. That universal bottle on the shelf? It's a gamble most engines lose. Habit number 3. Letting oil filter sit dry on startups. Had a customer complain about a subtle metal-on-metal knock every cold startup after doing his own oil change. Turns out he slapped on a new oil filter bone dry, didn't pre-fill, didn't prime. That first crank left his bearing starving while the pump fought to build pressure. Even 2 seconds of dry spin can scrape away the film that protects your engine from serious wear. It's a silent delay, but over time it shaves miles off your motor's life. Every time you run a dry filter, you risk startup wear, especially on cold mornings when lubrication is already slow to circulate. I always fill the filter first, especially on bigger engines or trucks with high oil capacity. If it's a spin-on type, there's no excuse. That seal holds fine and gives instant flow. Don't wait for oil to get there. Prime it, protect it, otherwise those tiny seconds of starvation become big-time damage down the line. Habit number 2. Chasing MPG with cheap mods. Had a guy brag about his new cold air intake he got off eBay, claimed it gave him better MPG and mad power. 2 weeks later, he's back with a stumble, misfire, and a confused The sensor readings were all out of whack, and his math couldn't handle the turbulence from that shiny knockoff. It choked airflow, messed with combustion, and actually increased fuel consumption. That so-called mod created more drag than efficiency. Classic snake oil syndrome. I see it all the time. people chasing economy gains with bogus gadgets or cheap parts that throw off calibration and throttle response. One guy added a 9 vortex plate he found online. All it did was create resistance in the intake and trigger throttle lag. You want real gain? Skip the false hype and tune properly, or better yet, maintain what's already there. Because nothing kills torque and performance faster than a gadget promising magic without real results. Habit number 1. Never reading freeze frame data. Had a customer with a persistent CL, rough startup and random hesitation. He'd been chasing the issue for weeks. Changed plugs, cleaned sensors, nothing worked. I plug in the scanner, check the freeze frame data, and boom, RPM was high, load spiked, and temperature was barely warm when the code triggered. That one snapshot told me everything. It was a cold misfire, not a fuel issue. Most people ignore this goldmine of diagnostic info and waste cash guessing. Freeze frame is like a capture of the crime scene. Your ECU logs the exact condition, input and behavior when the fault happened. Fuel trim, timing, throttle, even airflow. If you're not reading it, you're flying blind. Whether you're using an OBD2 tool or checking with a shop, always scan and log. It shows patterns, flags failures, and tells you where the feedback went wrong. Want better troubleshoot? Don't just clear codes, learn from what your engine is trying to say. Now before you go, there's one last thing. It's not a part, it's not a fluid, it's something your ECU's quietly collecting about you. Bonus tip, reset your adaptive driving data every year. Your ECU doesn't just learn engine data, it learns you. Your driving behavior, throttle habits, braking timing, it's all stored as adaptive memory. Over time, that learned behavior can turn into a liability. Poor shift timing, sluggish acceleration, weird fuel trim quirks. I had a client swap to performance tires, and suddenly their car downshifted late on corners. The transmission still thought it was driving grandma to the grocery store. The fix: use a scan tool to reset your adaptive transmission and throttle learning once a year, or after big driving style changes. Think of it like giving your car a fresh brain scan. Old habits might die hard, but your ECU doesn't have to carry them forever. Final thoughts. Every single habit on this list saved my engine thousands of miles of wear, and I've seen firsthand how ignoring even one can cost you big. You don't need luck to hit 700k miles. You need discipline, knowledge, and the guts to do what most drivers won't. If this helped you or opened your eyes to something you've been overlooking, hit that like button. It tells me to keep making videos like this. And drop a comment below. How many miles is your ride sitting at right now, and what's your secret to keeping it alive?